Boker Tov, everyone. Today is February 5th, and we are recording this in anticipation of a special Shabbat, Shabbat Shira, on February 8th. And there's an interesting rabbinic debate about how the song is actually sung that at first glance really seems to be nudniki myopia. Like, who cares how the song is sung? But it actually has quite profound resonance as we think about at least one read where it becomes a metaphor for the possibility of unity. How can one achieve unity? Is unity possible? And is unity sustainable over the long run? And this took on a particular resonance for me this week because I've, for quite some time, been part of a college listserv that was formed in order to help us as parents be informed about anti-Semitic incidences on campus and be able to band together and react to those experiences. And for quite a while, really all of the posts there on that listserv were directed towards that goal, that unified goal. And recently, what has started to happen is people are posting things that are eliciting quite a fair amount of divisiveness and division. And this past week, someone posted something to say, remember that we're all in this together, to which another poster replied, yeah, no. And so I want to think about through the eyes of the Song of the Sea that we read through Shabbat Shira, the question of, is it possible for us to sustain that feeling of unity, of mission together? Is it something that we can reach towards? Is it something that's just kind of a magical moment? Or in this country today and in our world today, which is filled with deep division, can the song perhaps offer us a model of how we might achieve some sense of common purpose? And so we're going to begin with our prayer here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. V'ha'arevna Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratcha b'finu u'b'fi amcha Beit Yisrael. ונהיה אנחנו וצאצאינו וצאצאי עמך בית ישראל, כולנו יודעי שמך ולומדי תורתך לשמה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלמד תורה לעמו ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. All right, so let's dive right into our sources. It's called Shabbat Shira, which sounds like it is a singular shir, but actually there are two special songs that are sung, and one might say, in fact, that there are even three songs that are sung here on this day, because we have, of course, the big Shira, which is the Song of the Sea by Moses, led by Moses and the Israelites. And then we have one that is led by Miriam. We'll look at that in a moment. Is that the same song? Is it a different song? Is it done the same way? And then, of course, we have in our Haftorah, Devorah's song, which is a very powerful song that we'll also try to unpack today. But I want to start at the Song of the Sea, looking at the Pshat. So, Eliza, if you could please, for us, just read verse 1.
Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to God.
Stop.
Yes.
Okay. That's all we need. Okay, question. Question for you, just based on Pshat. Who is singing? How are they singing? What is, like, when you imagine this scene, what do you imagine is happening here?
Everybody singing together.
Everyone's singing together, right?
Yes.
You're in like Prince of Egypt moment, and
Yes.
suddenly they've all broken out in song. Is there any question in your mind, like, how does that happen? How would, Eliza?
How good were they?
Right.
You're gonna edit them. You're gonna be like, you guys are getting out, but I'm gonna grade your performance here. It's
There'll be-
amazing. You
there'll
all
be,
burst into song, but like you're a little off key. I need you to pick it up a little bit.
There'll be auditions later. Yes.
But here's a question: like, how do they all know this song? What do you imagine is going on in this space?
To me, the fact that it's Az Yashir Moshe Uvene Israel, and it's not just Az Yashir, it's Asher Azot. Like then they all sang this song, or then the people of Israel all sang this song, means that it's like a call and response, which makes sense. Like you go to any protest and somebody's like, "Go everybody, go everybody." I mean that's a terrible cheer, but you can imagine that like if one person calls out the song, everybody can sing together, call and response. But you don't have to all know it.
Which is actually leads right into the next idea on Miriam's song. If you'll read us that first verse of Miriam's song.
Miriam led them in responsive song.
Okay, so and when we get to Miriam's song, there's actually a difference in language. In the Hebrew, it's vata'an, right? And she, in some sense, responded to. So the question is, as you look at that, there are multiple understandings of how this song moment happens, but one is that Moses and the people of Israel, the men, sang the first one, and now Miriam is responding. Another possibility is actually that Miriam is leading a call and response of exactly the type that you are describing. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the least probable and I think most compelling is that they'd actually built this practice of singing through slavery, and that this had been a song that existed long before the Exodus, and that they, even though freedom was improbable, and even though they couldn't even grasp this, like songs that were sung in this country during times of slavery, there was a musical tradition that preceded their liberation.
Which might also explain the vision that Moses and the people of Israel are singing together this one song, that it's perhaps a song that everybody already knew in preparation for this moment that they dreamed and that they imagined would come. Can we just unpack that for a moment? What would it look like if they were preparing this song in advance to think about unity? Like, what does that say about what it takes to be unified?
I think there's nothing more unifying than singing together, whether it's in unison or in harmony. Singing together, I think it's a very, very unifying event. I also find the language quite interesting. At the beginning, Az Yashir Moshe Uvnei Israel Asher Hazot, that my initial grammatical reaction is V'nei Yisrael refers to everyone, and then it's a little bit striking that it's that Miriam leads the women separately. So that actually is a little striking to me, because I was assuming
Why women though? Because it says lahem and not lahen. So if you're picking apart Miriam's leading, if it's specific to women, they would have used the feminine pronoun.
Yeah. So
And-
going back to your answer to your question regarding unity, every generation we prayed for unity in the world. All right, that will be unified in peace. That our hopes and dreams for a better world will always happen, and never happens. I mean, it happens in small instances. It could happen in our own small world, perhaps in our town, perhaps in the country, but not around the world.
Yeah.
But so, to me, this song, the Song of the Sea by the Israelites, is exactly comparable to that. Because, everybody started singing together. Wait a minute. There were what? 10,000 people singing together?
Millions.
More.
Okay,
Yeah.
10,000 people. So technicalities about that, all right? Knowing the song, suppose that everybody knew the song. How do they start? Who gave the order? From where? There were no internet, there were no instant messages. I'm starting now. Just small little things like that. And then, the echo of people still started singing before, and then at the end of the, thousands singing the same song. So it requires a lot of work, and it's probably even unmanageable.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up, because even if you try to sing something together, that phenomenon of kind of not being able to hear what the person behind you, when that ripple effect is so evocative, right? And I love that question of, can we even achieve this, which leads to more of a miraculous kind of a read. If everyone's all singing together, it's a miracle on the spot. But I'm really grateful, Eliza, that you brought out the idea that perhaps they had prepared, because I think that if you see these in two different models about the preparation versus the miraculous unity, one, if you're in slavery and you're learning these words as a vehicle towards your revelation and towards your ultimate redemption, there's a certain amount of pressure. It's lack, right? You're doing this because you lack something. Whereas if you're at the Song of the Sea and you're miraculously doing it, what is the source of your unity in that moment? It's an experiential moment that
So
you're
it reminds
you're,
the first
you're
thing that comes to
responding.
mind is that you know about this because we've been talking. There is one of the most shocking recordings ever done about survivors at Auschwitz when they are liberated in Auschwitz. I don't know, it's a group of maybe 30 Jews or 25 or, I don't know, because you can only hear them singing Hatikva. All right. And that was the earliest version of Hatikva because it got modified for the 1948 independence. How did they know it? How did they know it? So they've been practicing in the concentration camps for years, for months, for weeks. Interesting. And the experiential, that experiential, thing, horrible thing that happened to them, unify them in a way to sing this Hatikva.
Well, and I think that it's much easier to be unified when you have a common enemy than when you're just living life. And that the story that you shared at the beginning about this parent group that had been formed to work against this common enemy, which by the news accounts, at least that we're hearing, seems to be that campus environments this year are better than they were last year. And so that immediate threat and that immediate danger has receded to an extent that people are now being like, what is this group for? I'm not sure. We don't have that clear oppositional force that we once did. I think that's also true in this case, that, being united in their suffering, being united in this oppressor outside. We saw this also last year. I think, that's a beautiful example, but I think also last year we saw with the protests in Israel against the judicial reform that I'd never seen that kind of unity in Israeli society taking to the streets and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people all protesting with a unified voice and creating these grassroots organizations and mobilizing all around opposition to this one idea. And then mobilizing in support of Israelis after October 7th. So when you have a common enemy, when you have an oppressor, when you have something that's forcing against you, it's much easier to be unified.
Yeah, I also think about what this country was like after 9/11. It's a very similar thing. For months and months and months, we were a very different unified country. And then a year later, 2 years later, the adversity started to come back slowly and then slowly again. So yes, with the common enemy, and then that unification, yes.
All right. And of course, our tradition famously asks the question about how long does it take for that unity? How long can that unity hold? And the answer is
3 days.
3 days, right? We get 3 days there. And I'm really fascinated about that expiration date on unity, because I think there's something about these songs and how they actually come in and how they're done that might teach us about why the unity is so short-lived and whether we could imagine something beyond that. Is there another model? Is there an alternate way for us to think about how we approach unity? So we're going to study some Talmud. So the Talmud that we bring is from Sota 30b. It's where our rabbinic tradition is going to ask the question, hey, wait a minute, how was this song sung? It's going to give us 3 different models, and in each of those models lies a different sort of gloss on how people come together, how we can come together. So the first is Simultaneous Miraculous Song. Elias, since you like that one, please read the Simultaneous Song.
Where'd you get I like it? Anyways, so the sages taught in a Baraita that Rabbi Yosei Hagelili taught. At the time that the Jewish people ascended from the sea, they resolved to sing a song of gratitude to God. And how did they recite this song? If a baby was lying on his mother's lap, or an infant was nursing from his mother's breast, once they saw the divine presence, the baby straightened his neck, and the infant dropped the breast from his mouth, and they recited, "This is my God, and I will glorify him." As it is stated, out of the mouth of babies and suckling you have founded strength. Even fetuses in their mother's womb recited the song of this.
Can I share just a reaction as a parent who's pretty close to this stage?
Nothing interferes with it.
No, I'm just imagining all the moms are like, "Can you just please finish eating? We've got to go. Like, stop this. Stop singing. Just eat." And I don't want to walk and carry you. Like, so I didn't get that until having fed a kid, but now I'm like, this is so aggravating. Like, just eat.
Okay, so here we have this miracle of this baby who stops and is singing miraculously. What do you think that says to us about what it takes to create unity? Where is the source of the unity coming from? Can we expect this kind of, all of our people with one voice in the normal course of affairs, or what does it take?
Well, but is this a song of unity? Because if this simultaneous song, as you say, if it's really just all the babies, like
the babies are joining.
I understand, but it doesn't say that. It just says that the example is, if a baby is here and if a baby's here, you're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm reading the text. If a baby was there, they straighten their neck, and then out of the mouths of babies and sucklings, you found it, even fetuses. But it doesn't say, and they were joined by all of the adult Israelites.
Well, I think that's assumed in the Az Yashir Moshe Uvnei Israel piece, but
maybe.
I think that there has been.
I kind of love that it's just the babies, and everybody else is like, "Wow, look at those babies."
Nobody more qualified than you to talk about this in these days and age. I'm thinking about, in a more serious way. Not that yours wasn't serious, but
it's very serious.
How many times in history there has been leaders in countries that have this type of charisma, magnetism, that they are on TV or they are talking publicly, and you want to stop everything you are doing just to watch them and to hear them. So I'm more going to that power of what I take out of that, that thing, that personality that you are drew in.
So it takes sort of a charismatic moment.
Moment or person or something out of the ordinary.
Dan?
Yeah, so I'm thinking about a couple of sections in the Shirat Hayam. Did they know the entire poem? Maybe. But there are some things, like how would they know Susfer Virachvo Ramavayam? They wouldn't know that.
The chariots are getting drowned in the water, just translating.
Yeah, thank you. So they wouldn't know that, but they would know Michamocha Ba'elim Adonai. There would be Ze'eli V'Yanvehu and Ozi V'Zimrat. Yeah. So those some of those verses. Sorry for not translating, but some of those verses would be something that they would be more likely to be able to join.
Right. Wait a second. Can I? I mean, it sounds really beautiful. It sounds really good. But think about this. These are a group of people who left Egypt. They were slaves. They are leaving the comfort zone, although they were slaves. They have bread. They have food. They have a bed.
They have matzah.
Right?
Sorry.
In which circumstance they would say Micha Mocha Ve'elim Adonai? It's a little bit like too much of a stretch.
Yeah.
It's not that they've been praising God for generations or for decades, and then all of a sudden it creates this miracle in addition of everything that he has done or she has done, and now all of a sudden we say Micha Mocha. I mean, it's like.
Well, and I think that's the point of Yossi Hagalili's opinion that he's putting forward here, which is that even babies are singing this. It's not a prepared text. This is a miraculous moment or a charismatic experience. This is something that they are responding to in the moment. And a sense of unity has to be inspired and is in some ways kind of a miraculous happening if it ever happens throughout history. And given that we have very few of these moments, perhaps it happens very rarely.
I think in other religious traditions, they would call this channeling. That there's a divine energy that's moving down through all of the people, and it's not their own expression, right? Because babies, obviously newborns, they don't talk. There's no words. Like, and even when you get to be a toddler, they can parrot back, but they don't create their own word constructs. So this idea that there's this divine energy that's moving through the people, that God has created this theatric and is now moving this song through the people, that feels like the takeaway from this.
Yeah, so I think that's the first approach. The second one, Dan, will you read the second one, what I have labeled here, call and repeat?
The sages taught that on that same day, Rabbi Akiva taught that at the time that the Jewish people ascended from the split sea, they set their eyes on reciting a song of gratitude to God. And how did they recite the song? In the same manner as an adult man reciting Hallel on behalf of a congregation, as his reading enables all who hear to fulfill their obligation, and the congregation listening merely recite after him the chapter heading of Hallel. So too by the sea Moses said, I will sing unto the Lord. And the people said after Moses, I will sing unto the Lord. Moses continued and said, for he is highly exalted. And they said once again the chapter heading, I will sing unto the Lord.
The least moving explanation.
Right?
This is amazing. They can
And
listen.
yet, as Elias, you chimed in with a little bit of Hallel. The Hallel service, that is actually how we pray some of our prayers even to this day. You don't have to have a book. You don't have to know the words. The cantor prays them, and then we reply in response. So, question, is there anything generative in this second idea about like how one might achieve or perhaps sustain? Can one sustain? You're looking a little bit like this is a pretty boring way to move through the world.
And not just boring, but in the same way that call and response in a liturgical setting was set up for people that didn't know or couldn't read or didn't have books, so that they would be able to recite the correct words. They didn't have to have understanding or the ability. They were just like literally repeat phrases. And in today's world, especially, if you don't know what you're saying, it's just blah, 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 blah. Like, somebody said blah, 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 and you say blah, blah, blah. So this to me takes away some of the power. If Moses is just repeating it, people don't need to believe it. They don't have to have it in them. It's not necessarily their song. They're just like, okay, you said this, I'll say that.
And if you translate,
you talked about chant before, so I think that I disagree with you. I think that this is actually, to me, this of the three options, this is the one that makes the most sense, at least historically. That the people only had to know one phrase. And continually chanting one phrase.
I don't disagree that it makes sense. I
Yes.
just disagree that it has, like, to me, it takes away the power of the song. And that it, like, if they're just repeating, that's much less powerful than if there's a divine energy moving through them, or if they've been practicing it for generations.
and this one is very close to the Pshat. If you have Moses and Israel singing this song, it makes sense that it's back and forth like that. But I think, Eliza, you're bringing up something really important about the sustainability of that. Like, sometimes you have movements that are sustained by kind of, okay, I hear you, I'll respond to that, but we haven't really thought through as individuals whether we're bought in to the mission. And the question then becomes, can you sustain that type of unity, which is not founded in agreement, but rather in just assent to the moment?
Well, from the liturgical point of view, that has been what has happened since the creation of the profession of the Hazan, in the 5th or 6th century. We're talking about 1,500 years. Think about any Shabbat service. We stand here, the cantor leads Shema, Israel, everybody responds. In Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah service, we and Shema, Israel, everybody responds. Adonai Elohim, 7 times, back and forth. And even the call to the Torah, the Brachot, Baruch Adonai Baruch. So the liturgical aspects of the prayer, the aspects of tefillah has been done in that way.
Yeah, and
So
I
in
love
a way,
that you're,
it is sustainable.
Yeah, and I love that you're saying that, because as you're going through each of those examples, I'm thinking to myself, like, some of those are in Eliza's reaction here kind of would fit the Heschel critique that the prayer can become monotonous and simply rote. And some of those that you've repeated when I think like on the high holidays, when you do that, goosebumps, right?
And then in addition, when we sing a song together with the congregation in a place like Shabbat Alive, for example, and you hear 300 voices singing, 500, like Wes said, and everybody
700.
So it becomes so powerful.
Yeah. So let's lead into the third mode that the Talmud's going to bring us, because I think that may sort of bridge what you're talking about. Elisa, will you read?
Rabbi Nehemiah says, they sang the song of the sea like a scribe, a cantor, who recites aloud the introductory prayers and blessings before Shema in the synagogue. As he begins by saying the first words of the blessing, and they repeat after him the initial words and continue reciting the rest of the Shema together with him in unison. So too in the Song of the Sea, Moses began, and then everyone recited the entire song together with him.
So let's just unpack the pshat. What did that just say? What does that look
It's
like?
kind of comical, to be honest with you. Nobody is there for the introductory prayers and blessings, so you cannot build. And in the Shema, maybe it is mentioned in the Shema in the Torah, not the Shema in Shacharit, but anyways. No,
So
just
what
joking.
does this look like on a practical level? Help us to imagine this in our
Nehemiah is
mind.
like, it's the best of every world. They were channeling, but they had a leader, a profound leader who gets up and he sings the first words, and then magically everyone rises in song. So it's not call and response and it's not call and refrain. It's both.
And do you buy it?
No.
I mean, I couldn't see that with your body language and your voice.
To me, it's just like the least, it's like the least probable because like, I mean, okay, in some ways it's the most probable because yes, when you start singing a song and like you were at a birthday party and go happy, everybody joins in, birthday to, everybody knows the song and it takes that one song to begin it. But to me, it takes the power and the mystery out of that moment if we really believe that it was a channeled moment, that God is inspiring this, that babies are just bursting into song. Then if you have a leader, it's like, okay, whatever, they like, okay.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Dan?
So I was thinking about the fact that the sustainability goes further because the melody that we use is not used only there, right? We have the two other times in the Torah that it's used. While the people are traveling the 40 years in the desert, there are verses that are chanted according to that melody, and then also when the heads of the tribes are named, those melodies. So there's that continuous connection reminding us, and of course we have Shirat Hayam every morning. It's part of the service. It wasn't initially. I was looking at my sources here. It was originally only used in Shabbat afternoon, but we have it every single day, and so you have this opportunity to be reminded of that unity every single morning when you daven, when you read, when Shabbat Shira comes up, when Pesach comes up, when you have these other sections in the Torah that come up. So there is that continuous musical motif that can help us go back to that sense of unity.
So
Right.
oh, go ahead.
No. For me, comparing the three of them, I would say that models second and third would apply more to everyday life, things happening. And the
I
top
don't think
one,
Fetus's singing was the most realistic.
the top one could be like a one-time miracle, like
Yeah.
splitting the sea, and that if you split the sea, you can believe that babies will sing,
Fetuses. I
Why
want to hear
not?
how you think microphone
Yes,
systems.
that will be interesting to hear. But yeah.
But so the first two really seem like they have an application to our world here as we live and experience them. This third one, I think, is really trying to be a compromise position between the two. And at the end of the day, none of the Shabbat Shira, of the shir itself, the song itself of the Song of the Sea actually lasts, because we know that no matter how you read it and which way they approached their unity, that unity surely did not last. In the first case, it didn't last because the miracle's over, and you can't rely on a miracle. The miracle's not going to sustain you. In the second case, perhaps it doesn't last because people are just sort of there in the moment. They're not fully bought in and invested in the idea of what it would take to create a society that was unified. They're just responding. And then in the third way, we kind of need that nostalgia that you're talking about, Dan, to help us to sort of institutionalize it so that we continue. Hey, guys, remember that time that we were unified back then? That's our aspiration. Go back there. And perhaps it's the most effective over time, but it requires some second step, right? So I want to posit, you can argue with me here, that actually no matter how you read the unity of the Song of the Sea, it doesn't, you hit a dead end at some point about how we can apply it into our world, which is where our Haftorah actually comes in with a very different vision that I think is much more practicable. And so I'd love to invite you to look at Devorah's song. Basically, the Haftorah is a story about individual agency in stopping an attack against our ancient people, and in triumphing to the point that we can be safe and free, and all good things happen to us in the end. And it contains two women who, it's rare for a Haftorah for us to focus on the women, but both are articulating a pretty individualistic vision here, and I want to look at it. Dan, will you start with Devorah's frame? So this is before we get into the song itself. It just tells us a little bit about what's going to happen. Barak comes to her and asks her to go with him into battle.
And Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, then I shall go, but if you will not go with me, I shall not go." And she said, "I shall surely go with you, but your glory will not be on the way which you go, for into the hand of a woman will the Lord deliver Sisera." And Devorah rose and went with Barak to Kadesh.
Okay, so that's just some background there into the story. And in fact, it is indeed what winds up happening. Barak and his armies are not who is successful, but rather we tell this story of Yael. And it's an interesting and strange story, quite bloodthirsty. But I'd love to just very, very quickly read through it so we know where we are when Devorah's song
This
comes.
is an epic
Cool.
story.
So, Aliza, lead
Okay.
us through.
And Barak pursued the chariots and the camp to Harosheth Goyim, and all of Sisera's camp fell by the edge of the sword. Not even one was left. And Sisera fled on foot to the tent of Yael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between Yabin the king of Chazor and the house of Heber the Kenite. And Yael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Turn in, my lord, turn in to me, fear not." And he turned in to her into the tent, and she covered him with a garment.
Okay, and then there are a few verses about how she gets him to relax, and
We're skipping all the drama. Okay. And Yael, the wife of Heber, took the tent pin and placed the hammer in her hand and came to him stealthily and thrust the pin into his temple and pierced it through to the ground. And he was in a deep sleep and weary, and he died. And behold, Barak pursued Sisera, and Yael came out to meet him. And she said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man whom you seek." And he came to her, and behold, Sisera lay dead, and the pin was in his temple.
okay.
Oh my God.
It's so epic.
going
Women
to have
never get to be
nightmares
heroes
now.
like this.
I'm going to have nightmares now.
Okay,
She's
so-
such a rock star.
Yeah, so first of all, I brought this mostly because we don't ever dwell on this story for some obvious reasons, but it is considered to be one of the heroic agency moments, and it leads into Devorah's song, right? Devorah's song is in response to what has just occurred here. And so I only took one snippet of the psalm, but I think it's important that when she begins her song, it goes, Elias, will you read the page on page 5?
Now Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, sang on that day, saying,
Okay, so this is so interesting because it's Devorah's song. she sings it, and we know, we have Arise, Arise, Devorah. We have some very evocative and poetic lines in this. And yet, when we start the song, it is a song that they're together. And if you notice, in the beginning, she had advised against going together back when we were on page 3. What do you make of that?
Well, she doesn't advise against it. She's just like, if you want to come, you can, but you're just going to have to watch us have all the glory. Like, it's, it's like, if you want to be bored, like, if you want to be shown up by women, fine, you can come.
Yeah, although sort of the opposite, right? Because she says, like, if you need me to come, right, I'll come. But if I do, please know that this thing is going to happen. Or perhaps it was going to happen all along.
I always read it like,
it's going to happen all along.
If you really want to be pathetic and behind me, that's fine. We can do it together.
So let's go back to page 3 for a second, right? Barak says, like, I'm not doing this alone, right? If you go, I'll go, but if not, I won't go. And Devorah seems to be much more concerned about the unity and what that will lead to, right? Like, the unity that they have between the two of them is going to result in something going astray. Go back to page 3 and see, like, what do you think is actually happening here?
I don't see her being concerned with unity. I'm trying to follow, but I just don't. I see her being like, hey, dude, I'm a woman that lives in a time where nobody acknowledges our power and our abilities or anything. And, like, fine if you want to go with me, but, like, I've got important work to do. Like, I don't see her she has no need for him.
She has no need for him.
She has no need for unity. She's not, like, this is not a group project.
It's
She's
not a
very
togetherness.
clear
This is-
that,
and indeed
It's
not.
like in the movies
No.
when they say, just watch.
yes. She's like, I don't need you, dude.
Just
Like,
watch. I'll do this, and then if you like it, you can do it later.
But fine,
Call
we're
and
part of a
response,
patriarchal text, so we'll all sing at the end and pretend like it was all a group project.
So it is not a group project. And the Yael story shows us that actually it literally is not a group project. This is about an individual acting and, sort of rushing into the breach and being able to do something radical that shifts the entire situation. One might call sort of the charismatic leader here who simply does what is necessary in this moment. What do you make of the fact then that on page 5 that Devorah and Barak are singing together? Any
Patriarchy.
thoughts? So your sense is like, no, this is fake. It's really
Not
Devorah's
fake.
song,
Not
as
fake.
we call it.
They live in this world. This whole thing for me, Devorah, is like, I know we live in a patriarchal world, so I'm just going to label this for you that this is going to happen by a woman, and I know that when it gets written up,
But
it's going to be
Deborah's
all
name
of us.
is first.
Totally.
Natasha Deborah. Ubarak.
Yeah. I mean, like, they owed it to her that. Like, she prophesied correctly.
Actually, was Yael the one?
Yael didn't prophecy go. Yael's just like, I got it done. But Devorah says it's going to happen by way of a woman.
Right.
Yep.
But then when Israel sings the song, unlike Moses, Az Yasher Moshe U'Bnei
Right,
Yisrael,
Az
we just say
Yasher
Az
Yisrael.
Yasher Yisrael, her name has disappeared.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a collective that's singing. Now, in some ways you could say positive, there's unity, they're all one people, and it doesn't matter who does the action, it's everybody has the same glory. And in some ways it's like, is that really helpful?
Right. And the note in the Song of the Sea, you actually, by having this repetition of Miriam, you actually insert into that space that even in the unity, there's not unity, right? Because there are these two segments. Whereas for me, I'm fascinated by this question of at sort of the end, or really the beginning of the song that Devorah is going to sing, there seems to be some at least nod to we're in this together, right? You're saying it's the nod of the patriarchy. Any other possibilities?
I mean, if you only look at the text, and then it says As Yashir Israel, it looks like they evolve more into more unity. Nobody's standing out. We are all together, and we are all going to be celebrated by this accomplishment. Yes, I never never pay attention to that text specifically that much.
To
but
Devorah
it's-
and Barak.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to notice that, Alisa, I agree with you that the credit is not there. I mean,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
doesn't get the credit.
But Barak is part of it. I mean, there is a war going on.
But like,
Yeah.
okay, but does he turn the
Okay,
tides?
so that's one thing.
He's like, I don't feel brave enough to go to by myself, but I'll go with you, Devorah. If you can go with me, I feel strong enough to go.
Yeah, and there's this sense of the people. I mean, it's such a fascinating haftarah. It bears its own look just on its own terms, but this idea throughout the song of Devorah, we have this sense that unity is towards purpose, and that even that unity might not actually be unity. Right. So as we think about our world today, you can see, a number of examples of people who kind of work together on a common cause. And then as soon as that cause is done, it's done. And in some cases, it's not even done by the joint effort, but you see an individual effort that may undermine our sense of do we even need to come together at all?
I think it's also particularly interesting to look at this question because there's this loud voice in our country right now that's all about undermining diversity and inclusion and saying that we need unity, not about everybody being together with all of our differences coming together, but we need a myopic voice, and there's one way, and I'm going to erase any diversity, and I don't believe in it, and there's a white path, it's the path we should go forward. And I think that I don't buy, like, to me, I'm with all of the research that says teams do better when they have a more diverse group, that we do better as a people when we have ideas that differ from one another and we're able to collaborate and work together, that unity is not the goal, but a multitude of voices and a multitude of harmonies and a multitude of words and everybody coming together with a cacophony of perspective that makes it into one piece. That's the goal. And so to me, like, the whole point of the Song of the Sea for me is that we all have the power to sing together, as improbable as it is. We have some sample text, but my guess is that people were riffing and hanging out and making music, and that diversity of song is what enables us to continue singing it today.
I also want to bring in, I think there's also like the overarching textual thing here going on. Also, we do have the chariots again, so it reminds us of what happened, back at the Red Sea, and also the idea that Yael, acting in a really I can't think of the right word, but if we go back and think about how God treated the Egyptian army, there is that it's similar, the similarity of a merciless act, right? So God is merciless against the Egyptian army. Yael is merciless against Sisera.
Yeah.
So I think there's this overarching theme, and that helps us bring a sense of unity also.
Perhaps, yeah. I think that is a possibility, but I want to pick up on your thread, Aliza, that perhaps from the Haftarah we get a response of, it's great when we all sing together and when we're in, but that's perhaps a rare miracle. And sometimes the coming together that we have is much more mission driven and much more purpose driven, and takes an effort of taking individual accomplishment and joining it in to a broader possibility. Like, who do I want on my team, and how do I invite them there? Which leads into the last text, and with this we will end. This is a whole other song. It's not from this Shabbat. We encounter it later in our Torah, but we know that there's a song that is sung at the well when the Israelites don't have water, and it's the famous, spring up, O well. Debbie Friedman has a beautiful song to this, but Elias, will you just read Numbers 21?
Ascend, O well, sing to it. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel. Rabbi Avin the Levite said, When Israel stood up to chant the Song of the Sea, Moses did not let them chant it by themselves, but like a teacher who recites a portion of scripture with a child when he is young, they being like a child who repeats after his teacher. But after 40 years in the wilderness, Israel grew up and on their own proceeded to chant the Song of the Well,
Amazing.
as it says. Then sang Israel Sefer Haggadah.
Right. So this one, no names, no preface. This is everyone can finally learn how to sing together. Eliza.
I mean, I'm not. I'm like, Moses is so condescending in this, and like seriously, after wow, it's amazing. 40 years they were able to learn one song. Wow, the people, they're brilliant.
Dan,
No, I was just saying.
what do you make of this?
I'm really not sure where to go with this. To tell you the truth.
Elias.
No, I'm thinking things, but I mean, how many people come back after so many years and say, I want to chant my Haftarah back, but I don't know it. I've done it 40 years ago. So it takes a while, and I would underestimate, the amount of decades you need to teach somebody something. Because sometimes it's not about the skills. Sometimes it's about the wanting to do it.
Yeah, about the wanting to do it, right? What is our motivation here, and how do we maintain? Dan, you spoke about the nostalgia of the Song of the Sea, that we repeat this every day in our liturgy, and we put it there perhaps because unity, a simultaneous song, is not actually something that's a reality that can be sustained in our world today. We see it in our politics here in America. We see it in Israel. We see it in the world. The division among us runs really deep. And Devorah's voice here is actually perhaps there's merit in that. There's another rabbinic thrust that speaks about the idea of argument, of division, being actually important in how we go and grow as a people to get to that place where ultimately we could find a shared vision that will be redemptive. And this last Song of the Well perhaps offers us, if not a bow, perhaps a warning on the bow that it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of visioning for us to bring divergence together in such a way that we could possibly ever attain that moment of singing together, bringing our voices together.
Amen.
And when we do that, it is rare, but it is precious. And this Shabbat, as we come to Shabbat Shirah, which will be when this plays in just a moment, Elias, tell us why we should come to Temple Emmanuel in just a few moments to join you for Shabbat
Yes,
Shirah.
I have to go back to my office quickly to change and put on the suit. So I'll be ready for Shabbat Shirah, beautiful Song of the Sea, and we will enact all this stuff. And in addition, beautiful music that I grew up in Argentina, talking about a little bit about the community, and also talking about, this is a surprise, an unappreciated character in the Bible.
See you soon.
Can't
So
wait.
join us there. We'll see you soon.